practice been like, especially now? I guess Eddie said you guys just started Virginia Tech prep this today, I guess.
Yeah, it's been good. You know, the guys have, you know, you never know in this time, you know, when they've got finals and, you know, a lot on their minds, and they have Christmas and all that. But it's been really good, enthusiastic practices. Guys have been locked in defensively today. You know, was the sort of the first Vatek install, and you know, we'd been sort of feeding it slow, been watching film, you know, through last week, and they really talked today, communicated, which was great to see, especially for you know, for the first day, and then you know, we'll get a couple more practices here, and then obviously the bowl prep. So a really positive start to this, and obviously when you get into a bowl, you get more time than usual. So as a coach, you got to just make sure that you don't do too much, you know, with all that extra time.
What challenges do they face offensively? Kind of where are they good at?
Yeah, they can really run the football, you know, and they do a lot of quarterback run. Their quarterback, you know, he's different in style than Lynn, but very much involved, you know, like Lynn is. And so whenever you get that much QB run game and a guy that can run the football, you know, the way Hooker can, it poses challenges because now it requires all 11, you know, to make sure that your gap's in. And you know, if you're in a single high defense, you know, you got to be mindful at times you're going to be a gap short, and you're going to have to use that post safety. And but he's a solid thrower. In the receivers, you know, 11, you know, can really go. 83, 14's a big, you know, X, and so they present. You can't just completely load the box because then they'll get you on some big plays down the field. So a little bit like Louisville in that regard, that you've got to be really mindful of the big plays. And you've seen in games you saw against Georgia Tech, you know, they were able to put up 45, 28-0 against Pittsburgh. I mean, they can put up points, and obviously they play good defense. So it'll be a good challenge for us all the way around.
They've had some fumbling problems. I think 14 on the year. Is there something you guys can do to take advantage of that?
Yeah, you know, obviously all year we've wanted to try to attack the football. You know, and some of those are exchanges, different things. You know, when you do as much ball handling as they do, you know, that tends to pop up. But on the most part, you know, they're pretty good in that regard. And we're going to have to, when we get an opportunity, if we get an opportunity to go after a ball that's on the ground or punch one out or strip one out, we've got to be really aggressive and go create that turnover, go make that turnover, go dive on that football. Obviously, there was the situation, I think it was UT Martin, you know, when we tried to scoop and score, and we ended up not getting it. So we need to make sure when there's a ball on the ground that we recover it.
Brad, as you watch this defense grow over the course of the year, what was the main step your guys had to take to get to where they are now?
I think it was a confidence thing. I think it was confidence not just in their ability, but in their mental capacity, in that, hey, you know what, I can make a call, I can make a check. You know, when you're young, sometimes you're afraid to speak, or at least speak loudly, because you're not sure if you're wrong, and you don't want to put everybody else, you know, get 10 pairs of eyes looking at you saying, oh, you made the wrong check. You know, I think we've gotten to a point where we're loud in our communications, we're confident in our communications. You know, I think there was a point that we had to simplify a little bit, you know, defensively, and just so we could get to that point, and then we can, you know, we can build more on top of that as we go. But I think it came down to confidence, faith, trust, and that they are good enough. And it's not about a perfect play call. It's not about anything else except do your technique and do it to the best of your ability. Talk, communicate, study film, understand how to study film. It's the little things. And they've embraced that. They've embraced the standard that we've set for ourselves. We're not playing for a certain score. We're not playing for anything except our standard. And you know, if we achieve that bar, then we're happy for the games. We don't achieve that bar, it doesn't matter win or lose. We're happy that we won, but we're not satisfied with how we played.
Who are some of the younger guys that you were talking about that are not afraid to make checks or reads and that have spoken up more as the season has gone on?
I think really from a secondary standpoint, early on, it felt very much like Yusuf was really the only one talking. Cash obviously talks from a second level standpoint, but you'll see it from Chris Oates, you'll see it from Square, and I think Square always knew and maybe at times deferred to Cash, and I think nobody defers to anybody right now. JG has really stepped up. Boog has. Our Sams need to be loud, definitive, vocal players, and he took that role. South Carolina, I think, was a big game for him. Obviously not just the production, but it helped him take the next step and realize, okay, we played South Carolina, we had the bye, and you have to not just play, but you have to vocalize. You have to elevate everybody else's play. That's, I think, to what certain guys on last year's team, everybody thinks about how well they played on the field. Mike Edwards, Josh Allen, but they elevated the play of the guys around them as well. And when we started to get that as a defense, then everything took off.
As far as like the bowl prep is concerned, compared to last year, does anything change in the format, the way you guys are approaching everything?
I don't think so. I think it's probably more of a question for coach, but I think it's pretty similar in how we've laid it out. There's just the way the schedule laid out is probably a little bit more condensed than it was last year, but in terms of how we've structured practice, how we've gone about installing teaching, I don't think really any difference than last year.
Did you like that group you signed yesterday, especially after it plays Cal and TJ?
I love that they're big. They're big bodies. They're big up front from a D-line standpoint. You look all four of those guys that we signed interiorly, and it's as good of a hole as you can get right there. And then you look at all levels. You look at Sam from an outside backer perspective. He's physically grown right now, and then he's only going to get bigger. And then you look at the second level, De'Aaron is a big inside backer, big guy that can thump. And then you look in the back end, and we've got length and twitch and guys. So I think what you've noticed over the last couple of years is that we've looked big on the field, and when you look big and you're physically in shape like Coach Ed gets them in, and you play big, you can play good defense. And you don't have to do a lot of different things. You can just play big and you can play fast. And again, you go back to what was the difference, as we went down the stretch. Our big defense played big. And that's how we're going to do it.